I am very happy to have with us Professor Mazurek. He is the Rector of Kozminski University. Now, let's jump into it immediately. Maybe, Professor Mazurek, thank you for being with us. Maybe in a few bullet points, if you can tell us in your own words a little bit about your university.
Thank you, Slađana. It's a great pleasure to be with you, and hopefully some humble facts about Kozminski will be the good introduction. So, from my point of view, Kozminski is an amazing organization which is full of new ideas, innovations, and that's organization which is very much aware of the changes, disruptive changes which are going on around, which means that although seems like we have quite a nice position in Europe and in Central and Eastern Europe, we perceive our position as something what is very dynamic, meaning we cannot take it for granted. That's why the most important element of the school, I would say, is not the rankings. It's more about the culture of the school and the perception of the changes which we all have to implement. Because we all know very much that the turbulences which are around us, they are not somewhere there. They are impacting organizations, and I think mostly they're impacting business schools, because they have to be very much on top of acceptance of everything what's going on. Otherwise, they just lose their battle, if we can use this word, in I would say acceptance from societies. So maybe that introduction of Kozminski is much different than you expected. But I don't like to talk about our positions in terms of accreditations on the rankings and so on, because this is obviously important, but we know that right now, honestly, competitive advantage is built in other areas, and one of those areas would be the culture of the university, which differentiates it from others.
Thank you for this introduction. And like you said, it was not expected, but it was very nice to hear. So a few months ago, we did a webinar with our EdTech director, Nikos Mylonopoulos, and it was on the topic of digital transformation. So we defined, let's call it a 7-layer cake. We defined 7 areas of digital transformation, because by now we all know that digital transformation is not just switching to video conferencing and that's it. There's many, many more layers behind it. Can you give me specific examples of what you did in your school in these 7 areas? So let's start with number 1, which would be hybrid learning.
Sure, I would say that those 7 perspectives or 7 layers model is amazing to discuss the digital transformation, because in fact it is very complex and very multifaceted. And very much intertwined between different areas at university. So firstly, when we talk about hybrid learning, I would say this is one of the biggest pitfalls of teaching nowadays, because in our terms, hybrid means that you as a teacher, you are in a class and you simultaneously work with students who are in the class and students who are online. So the question is hybrid great, and is a hybrid the future of education? My answer is no. I would say that hybrid is, first of all, very difficult because it's not because of the technology, it's more because of engagement of the teacher, of a professor, who we expect from the teacher that he will be able to engage on the same level the students who are in the classroom and who are online, which is hardly doable. Besides, if we think about the good education, it means engagement of students also between each other. So imagine a smoothly run class when you have 30 students offline and 25 online, and you try to work with them in groups. You try to engage with every single group, to answer questions to every single group. So you can imagine how difficult it is. So this is, in a way, example how some nice words like hybrid learning shows you how difficult it is, not mentioning the costs of equipment to the classroom, which is needed to make it all run smoothly. So for instance, what we decided at Kozminski is that hybrid classroom is okay, but only for specific studies, mostly for MBAs and executive MBAs. Why? Because those students are aware of the potential of engagement in the classroom, which means that in most of other classes, we decided to have 0-1 model, which means either every single student is in the classroom or every single student is online. There is something which we call, I would say, soft hybrid, which means that you have the students in the classroom, and those who are not able to be in the classroom, who have to be online, are able to be online, but they are more on passive mode, meaning that the professor is not engaging with the students. But then that's why I call it soft hybrid, because from the point of view of equality, the students who are online are not getting the same quality as those who were offline. So hybrid for me is actually one huge pitfall and one huge complex issue of learning and teaching nowadays, not because of the technology, but because of the skills and possibility of engaging the students on the same level who are online and offline.
Yes, this is a very, very good point. Thank you for that. I can see the logic behind it, because to talk about engagement and to be engaged, it has to go both ways. So from the professor side as well as on the student side. And I can imagine that there's a specific mindset that needs to be set in place in addition to run all of this smoothly. So this is something that still needs to be developed, discussed, and thank you for this insight. So if we go to the second layer, which is digital learning experience, can you give us a little bit of an insight about that?
Yeah, how I understand digital learning experience is immersion and fun of doing things online in education. So going forward, I would put it on operational level, which means, do we have tools to educate, to develop our students? And do we have teachers who know how those tools should be used? Well, let's have one simple example, which probably all of us know. That's Kahoot, right? So simple application online, which by simple usage can engage students and can, by gamification, create a nice atmosphere and engagement of everybody, not only students, but also professors. And there are tons of tools like that. So digital experience in learning means that, first of all, the university have a portfolio of such tools for the professors, that the university has teams, or at least 1-2 persons who are responsible for spreading around those tools among the teachers. And the university has a special scheme of motivating professors to use those tools in education. That all creates potential for building the digital experience. Nevertheless, what is the most important, again, is not the technology, is the eagerness of professors to change their habits in their process of teaching, and that we know is the most difficult, and that is also something what I would say long-term oriented. From my experience at Kozminski, what is also easier is to create some, let's say, pioneers teams. So the teachers who are just, having fun of experiencing with the new digital tools, and they have a chance to create their own educational projects. So they are not forced make changes within the stable study programs, but they are able to experiment without all those regulations, procedures, which are usually connected with a bachelor or master degree. So usually that's the experimental projects are at first somewhere there, and if they are okay, they are implemented into traditional study programs.
That's lovely. That's taking advantage of the early adopters while they're having fun and then hoping it will catch on. This is a great idea. So if we move to the next point, which would be technology investments. Now, this is a heavy one for all of us.
Yeah, I would say that's very tough project and very tough topic. First sentence, which is absolutely honest, we are all the slaves of technology right now. Being a slave means that we are very much dependent on technology. And here comes another issue, as universities, dependence on particular players in educational and in technology business. So the question is, and here I think is the most important, whether the players from IT business perceive us as partners or perceive us as clients who should be just taken and should be exploited of. So here the most important thing I would say is to take and to use and to take advantage of the business, the IT partners who take you as partners in the development of education. That's very difficult because, well, in business, it's very often that if you have a client, that means that the client is dependent on me, which means that I can, I don't know, decrease the level of quality of my services and so on and so forth. So I would say that dependence on technology is a huge strategic and managerial issue for universities, which also means whether we as university, as decision makers, use let's say, big fish technologies, or we give a chance to small players who are usually very innovative, very agile, and very, I would say, client-oriented. What we decided at Kozminski is to take both paths, which means that the biggest systems we are having or we are developing, those are the systems which are used in the best business schools around the world, which means that in terms of ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning System, we use Microsoft Dynamics. We obviously use Microsoft solutions for virtual online teaching. But in terms of building relations with our students, we decided to use Salesforce engine, which is competitive comparing with Microsoft. That's a different solution. And in terms of many other services, like, for instance, the workflow and the documents flow in terms of students, relationship with students, with university, we develop our own systems with let's say, startups, because we also know that, and we all know that, although we have many, like hundreds or even thousands in Central and Eastern Europe universities, there is no, for IT business, there is nothing like scale, because every single university is different. So obviously, at first, the same solution seems to be available and applicable for every single school, but that's a trap, because usually every single school has its own particularities, which means huge requirements for IT business. Hey, you have to do it our way. So for IT business, that's a nightmare, because they cannot build economies of scale.
You actually, in one answer, you answered my sub question, which was, do you have anything built in-house? And what specifically? So you already answered my question. Thank you for that.
Yeah, maybe one more thing, because yes, yeah, we have a customized solution. We have standardized global solution, but I think in most of our universities, we have to also deal with solutions provided by a government or by regulator. I remember some time ago, I was in accreditation body in Slovenia, and I don't know whether it's still like this, but during that time, there was a centralized system for recruiting of students for universities. And that's an example of a system which is created completely without your control, and you are obliged to use it, no matter whether you like it or not. And that's terrible because, because that whatever happens without your control, that means that you are losing your control. So for instance, in that example, when you want to build relations with candidates, students, and alumni, having the interference of some outer system which you don't have control of just demolishes the strategy.
Absolutely. Just yesterday, we were discussing in a different meeting, but this exact topic about how the school should be able to take control of the management or dealing with all the stakeholders, not just students. It has to be professors, the top management, the alumni, the non-academic staff, media, and government. A lot of times we don't pull those stakeholders in, trying to make something even better and trying to make something work. So this is a very important topic. Now, data-driven learning paths. Did you do anything in that direction, or what is your aspiration?
I would say that's again, honestly, that's another very, sorry for the word, sexy topic, which everybody talks about. But let's look at the reality. What in fact it means that you want to create individualized product, meaning education or development of a person, on a mass market. Because when you think about, let's say, bachelor program, and you have 400 students or 4,000 students, imagine that you are right now telling those students, listen, every single person here, based on the data we have about you, have a chance to customize your bachelor program. Well, let's put it simply. It's impossible because of the logistics, because of the costs, because of many other reasons. So what I would say is that obviously it's not 0-1. I mean, no individualization or total individualization. We have to find ourselves somewhere in between. And honestly, although I deal with digital sphere through all my career, meaning 20-something years, I'm probably one of the most skeptical person towards the technology. I mean, I'm not romantic, which means that I would rather give those students contact with an empathic tutor, so a person who can really listen to those young person and give a pieces of advice concerning, let's say, electives within the study program, rather than saying our big technology machine will tell you what should you study. So my one sentence answer to that issue would be calm down and look at the value you want to provide to the stakeholder, to the student, because this is something what is absolutely the most important. I would say, I would call it the value obsession. I mean, always perceive whether the solution you want to provide gives any value, and if so, whether there are not other solutions which can bring similar value or even higher value. So this issue would be the example of a situation when, by using different approach, in my opinion, human-centric approach, face-to-face interaction with somebody who can really listen to you, is really much, much better than using high-tech artificial intelligence data-driven tools. Because education is about individualization, that's true, but the real individualization, not just the one which is provided by some tools without any guarantee that those tools will give the real value.
Yes, I wanted to mention the customer centricity, so taking the approach of customer centricity, but you said it much more nicely, which is human centricity. So another very, very well pointed out issue. So if we move further down the line, further down the 7-layer cake, we come to future-oriented credentials. Is it somehow connected to the data-driven learning path? And have you done anything?
Not really. Okay. I would say that, first of all, well, we as rectors, as managers, we don't have full autonomy. And what I mean by this is that in all of our countries around the world, studies are regulated. Bachelor degree, master degree, PhD, and so on and so forth. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that regulations kill elasticity, which means that the question is whether the regulated service or product or studies is good from the perspective of the need of society. And what I see is the more micro-credentials you have, and the more people use micro-credentials, the less, I would say, value-bringing product the real studies are. Because from my perspective, micro-credentials is a way to bypass the traditional regulated system. So if you cannot change the system, then people use different solutions to bypass the system. And I say it very often, especially to people from government and from regulatory bodies. Don't take for granted that every single person will think about their development as bachelor, master, PhD. Because the world is changing, and we see very much that in, for instance, such areas like IT, computer science, people are neglecting traditional layers of development. They are even on bachelor level, they are already taken by the job market because they don't have time to study for 3 or 5 years. So in a way, micro-credentials are solution for business schools to be up to date with the reality, because you may change a lot of things in bachelors and in masters, but it may not be perceived by the market as enough. So then micro-credentials is something to create, which is usually not regulated, which means that you can be very fast and responsive to the market needs. And here comes the issue why what is important is that the building of a brand of university is, in my opinion, the most important right now, because after all, the student will be happy with the document which has on it not necessarily the name of the product, but the brand which proves and guarantees the quality of education. So I think that if you want as a university to go very much into micro-credentials, simultaneously you have to really think about building your brand as a credible organization in terms of the provision of different kinds of education rather than only bachelor and master.
So the need, the market need for the micro-credentials, you can sum it up, it is bigger, it's increasing, it's there. So do you offer any micro-credentials in your school?
Yes, we have many programs which are, what is important is that micro-credentials can be offered to many target groups. And by that, I mean also to students who are already your students. So for instance, a student can have bachelor in management, and simultaneously in the evening, the student can take advantage of Python course, which gives you, which would be micro-credential for getting skills in particular programming language. Okay,
which is described by some people the language of the future, one of the languages that we will have to learn.
Yes, for instance, some people say so, which probably is true. The same, well, actually, if you when you said language, so I thought also about, for instance, traditional language skills. So also, for instance, providing the students with the course on, I don't know, preparing you for TEFL examination, that also can be perceived as micro-credential, depending obviously on the content of it. But in my opinion, micro-credentials are a fantastic strategy for business schools, because the micro-credentials are flexible, are not regulated. You can very easily create those, because usually they are much smaller in terms of number of hours, and you can very nicely experiment with online approach to those micro-credentials as well.
And it falls very, very nicely into the field of lifelong learning and into the field of reaching out more and connecting more with your alumni. Because
absolutely,
you know,
absolutely,
considering
absolutely.
the fast changes that are happening and the reskilling and upskilling that we need to keep track of and be up to date with, this is something that I think every, not just business school, every school in higher education should think about.
Definitely, definitely. Our approach at Kozminski is, first of all, that we are not school, we are community organization which is responsible for your development, which means that if you come to us as being a 13-year-old kid, we are able, thanks to data, be with you through all your life, providing you different formats of education and development on different parts and stages of your life. So for that, you need micro-credentials, traditional degrees, webinars, face-to-face meetings, and so on and so forth. And here, obviously, you are right. The most important is a good data ecosystem, integrated, centralized, because thanks to that, you are able to be with the right offer in the right time to the right person. Absolutely.
Let's go to the next layer of our digital transformation cake, which is learning platforms and ecosystems. Although you already mentioned a few, but if you can just quickly name a few things that you've done in your school.
Yeah, so the first, if we can call it platform, which is obviously standard right now for all of us, is MS Teams, right? So we use MS Teams as a platform, not only for teaching online, but for providing the students the documents, by creating questionnaires, quizzes, and so on and so forth. But that's one of the platforms which is obvious. The other platform which is not obvious is LMS system, so learning management system. And here the situation is much more difficult because those systems are usually very expensive. You have a couple of solutions around the world, like Blackboard, like Canvas. What we decided at Kozminski, we used here experimental path, and we took advantage of Scandinavian solution, which is called It's Learning, which is very popular in K-12 education, but they are very much into, they are very eager to get on higher education level. So we decided to be their main partner in development of their skills in higher education. So for us, It's Learning is a platform which we decided to develop. And here comes the most difficult thing when you have different platforms and different solutions, and on the other side, you have a customer experience. So obviously every single student and all of us wants to have simplicity. And that is, I would say, for instance, for Kozminski, one of the biggest challenges when we have altogether probably 5 important systems not integrated into one, and never will be integrated into one because those are different platforms. And then you have customer experience. So the only way is to educate and to help by tutoring the student how to use all those systems together, especially in the first months of their journey with Kozminski. But I think choosing LMS system is one of the most difficult decisions right now, because you have to also think about in terms of internationalization of a student. You also want to have it all smooth. So you would love to have the same student from Madrid coming to you to Slovenia would love to have exactly the same system. And here, obviously, you can use the benchmark and to see the ranking of FT, the best business schools, and check what LMS platforms those schools use. Then you have a solution, but the question is, can you afford that solution? Okay, and so here are typical managerial problems, but I would say that one of the key parameters of decision, apart from money, budget, is the customer experience.
I already read a couple of times now that certain systems and tools and everything in K-12 is adapted much faster than in higher education institutions. Isn't that interesting?
Very interesting. The question is why, whether it's more about the kids who are digital native, or is it because the regulations of governments who can force schools to use the same system immediately? Because, well, that's in a way a good thing about centralization, that you can, you know, omit all the discussions. You can say, listen, we all use that solution, period, right? So you can force some transformations much easier if you have the people who are very much aware of the technology at the level of the government or ministries.
So coming to the last point of our layers of the digital transformation, it's actually the point that has been running throughout all the others that we have already mentioned, and it's people. It's about agile, multidisciplinary teams, which to me translates, it's all about people. You've mentioned throughout all the other layers or sectors or, you know, departments, that it all depends on, you know, the people. So we have students on one side, we have faculty on the other, we have staff that is supporting this, we have then the management team. Your experience and your thoughts.
Yeah, so again, I will try not to be very romantic about it. I'll give you one example. If you want to increase the digital competences of your team, meaning administrative team, that means that those people get new competences. That means that they are more and more competitive on the job market, which means that the risk of losing such people rises dramatically, because those people suddenly are not only equipped with higher education knowledge, but they become IT skilled, talented people, which means that you are romantic but by investing in competences of your employees, and simultaneously you create yourself a big problem, because you have to also have budgets and potential, HR potential, to have those people in your team afterwards, because they simply can get better wages in IT business. So this is, I think, one of the things we are not discussing. I mean, increasing digital competence of your team means that you have to be ready for situations when you can lose actually your employees. Secondly, I would say that being agile, being project-oriented, is a huge necessity for business schools because of one simple reason. And again, I think about administrative staff. We still work in silos, okay? For instance, you are responsible for serving the students, which means that no matter how you love the job, sooner or later you'll be bored with doing the same thing all the time. So here, what we have at Kozminski, we have every single employee gets a long training on project management, which means that you work in your silos, but there are projects which are horizontal, and you can, as a leader or as a part of the team, be also in this new project. So that means that you have your regular job, but simultaneously, if you want, you can be part of some temporary project, which can be completely out of your regular job. Moreover, obviously, you can come up with your own ideas, and we have the bank of ideas. People evaluate those ideas. Then we, at the managerial level, top level, we decide which ideas should be implemented. We give budgets. We indicate the person who will be responsible, and that means empowerment of your employees.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. A bank of ideas, it's actually called like that?
It's bank of ideas, yes.
Lovely.
So you just give people, it's like crowdsourcing, right? You give people the floor, but obviously it's not that every single idea will be implemented. There are a couple of parameters. The first one is the alignment with the strategy, the budget, and the person who will be responsible for implementation of that solution. So I think this is also very important, because people will be with you if they will be empowered and they will feel that they are really having the impact on the development of the organization. Otherwise, sooner or later, they will get bored with the job. So being agile means that you give them the possibility of work. So what I like to say, and it's not marketing claim, I really think about it this way, that my role as a rector is to help my employees do the things they love, because my role is, to try to get rid of the constraints they have. Because if they know, it's in a way, it's a tile organization, but if you have the team which knows where the school is heading, they also come up with new ideas, which my role is to help them with.
So we came to the very end, to the last layer, the last but not least, which is of course people centricity. Did we forget anything? Would you add something to these 7.7 layers of digital transformation? Do you do anything that we didn't mention? Perhaps I can add another question that a few days ago, I saw one of your posts from Kozminski University mentioning esports, perhaps.
Yeah.
What do you think about gaming and esports in higher education and business schools?
No, I think that's for just like you said about Python, that we should learn a bit of Python. I would say that the same with eSport. eSport is a new language of skills. By playing video games, you actually get a lot of skills which are needed right now in reality. So we implemented a lot of e-gaming, esports in our activities, because that's also very much connected with gamification, which is, again, obvious in development right now. So I would say that digital transformation is a painstaking process, very costly, very problematic. On the same time, there is no other option, so you have to go in it. Secondly, it's fun because you have the pain of learning new things. And we all know that, the zone of comfort is something which we love, but the digital transformation is something what forces you to development. And so there is no other option. So forget about, we can wait another 2 years, maybe we'll come down. No. I mean, I'm sorry to say it, but the world is speeding up. And if we want to be responsible for the development of our students, that's the only way to keep up with the development which they perceive and they have.
Any last words of wisdom for all of us trying to catch up, or even try to go beyond the catching up?
Be humble.
Also for the ones who are struggling, because there are some who perceive this as fun, as as games, like loving to learn the new things, loving all the hiccups and the obstacles, and then the joy of overcoming it. But then on the other side, there is, I think, quite a lot of people who still struggle with all of this.
Yeah. I would say the last word would be stay humble and have the perspective of a thin cat, meaning really observe the reality, never take things for granted, and never ever say that if you are a professor, you know everything and just you have answers for everything, because we are in the world where many answers which were okay 5-10 years ago right now are not okay anymore. So really be aware of everything that's going on around and try to be responsive to that.
Professor Mazurek, thank you very much for your time and your insights.
It was a great pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.